President, Senate, and House of Representatives. And fundamentally, they made all three of them universally electable and democratically accountable. We, in contrast, only democratise the House of Commons, and all our present difficulties stem from this. So we should follow the Americans and have a directly elected House of Lords. We should also have a directly elected Prime Minister. And, above all, we should separate the legislative and the executive, with the British Cabinet, on the lines of the American, being chosen by the Prime Minister, but not sitting in Parliament. That, at a stroke, would free Parliament from the tyranny of the whips and leave it to get on with its proper job of scrutinising the laws and holding the government to account on behalf of us, the people. That's what Tom Paine argued for and struggled for in the 18th century. And it's what we are clamouring for in this present crisis once again. Otherwise, there will have to be a British Revolution.
David Starkey from beautiful downtown Sandwich in Kent, to our little cesspit of a village here in Westminster. David Starkey, welcome back to This Week.
Andrew, welcome.
Is this crisis on a historic scale?
Yes, I think it is. It's not yet in the sense that there are riots in the street, but there is a sense of swelling discontent with, of course, a new force, namely the media, to orchestrate it, give it voice, direct it. And, of course, there are imminent elections, and there is, worst of all, I think, a government which is manifestly on the run. We've a Prime Minister who has actually got no democratic legitimacy. We've got a government at the fag end of its existence. We've got a Parliament that's now perceived to be rotten. In other words, the whole structure is looking teetering and fragile, as political systems do on the point of real revolutionary change. It just needs that push. Nobody yet has come forward that's acted as a real revolutionary leader.
What, in your view, would that push be? What would be the catalyst for this frenetic atmosphere to turn it into real change?
Well, one political leader could do it. For example, Cameron has, on the whole, been very brave. He is rather impressive under pressure. He has slaughtered, whereas Gordon Brown, interestingly enough, evokes Star Chamber, the characteristic instrument of a despot. Cameron goes and does it. He says, you go, you go. He's called for a general election. If Cameron were to call for a general election followed by a constitutional convention, it would be unstoppable. And were I him, I'd do that.
Diane, on the Labour backbenches, is there an appetite for radical constitutional reform? He's laughing. I'll ask him why in a minute.
Terror. You can hear the tumbrils and the swish of the blade.
First, let me say that the atmosphere in Parliament in the past 2 weeks has been like nothing I've ever seen.
Really?
650 members, not just Labour members of Parliament, 650 members of Parliament, all looking as if there's been a death in the family, and all of them waiting for that fateful phone call from the Daily Telegraph. Now, and you know,
if you don't get it by 4 p.m, you know you're all right for the
everyone's
next day.
Terrified.
Until tomorrow.
Exactly.
Until tomorrow. Yes.
Everyone's terrified until 4, then they relax until the next day. But I mean, is there an appetite? You know, we know, I think all of us, and I don't think this is really about individual parties.
No.
I think the public sees us all the same. And we know, we all feel humiliated by what has happened. And we all know that it's almost like the implosion of a political class. And if this isn't the time for really radical change, I don't know when it will be. So, some of your ideas are very interesting. And, you know, I'm all for an elected House of Lords, for instance. But no, now is a time for change.
We know, Michael, that the reform of the expenses regime has begun, and we know it's got a lot further to go. But will the crisis over expenses feed into a much wider constitutional change?
Oh, I do hope so. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. And I think David Cameron could be the man. I hope that he is feverishly trying to figure the thing out now. I mean, I don't think David Cameron should be worrying about the expenses regime, because it's almost yesterday's story. With what the Speaker announced the other day, you know, everything's got to be published on the internet.